Hey everyone, I'm Rob Stats Guerrero, one of the hosts of the SB Nation NFL Show. Football season is here, and so is the SB Nation NFL Show. We are keeping you up to date and in the know on everything happening in the league with the twice daily NFL podcast. We've got in-depth analysis, betting and fantasy advice, power rankings, weekly awards, and much more. Plus, you can start your weekdays off every morning with our daily kickoff show, where we'll tell you everything you need to know about the NFL in less than 10 minutes. So subscribe to the SB Nation NFL Show today and get the football coverage you deserve.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Fighter versus the Writer. I am your host, as always, Damon Martin, and I am joined today by the man who will compete in the upcoming, well, he's already competing in the upcoming Bellator Light Heavyweight Grand Prix, his next round matchup coming up very soon against Corey Anderson. Of course, he is also the Bellator Heavyweight Champion of the World. Welcome back, Ryan Bader. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm fantastic myself. Thank you so much for being here and co-hosting the show with me today. I really appreciate it. Before we get to the fight stuff, I have a very important question to ask you, and I got to put you on the record for this one. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
When did you become the meme king of Instagram? Because everyone says Derek Lewis is the Instagram follow you have to do in fighting. I think it's yours, because I crack up at your Instagram more than anybody else's right now.
Honestly, I usually just put them in my stories. Maybe I'll put them in my main deal, but, stuff that I found funny, I don't know, probably like 4 months ago or something, I just started kind of posting on my stories. And then if there are days that I didn't post, like I got all these messages like, dude, where's the memes at? And they got pissed at me. And I'm like, man, I guess I got to keep it up. And then I started getting messages like, man, your memes make my day in the morning. I sit and drink my coffee. I laugh. I feel good, And so I'm like, man, there's a greater good to be had here. So I just kind of continued it.
Yeah, I have absolutely screenshotted and stolen so many memes from your page that I send to people because I'm just like cracking up, laughing, and dying. I was just like, I don't know where you find them. Like, don't tell me your secret. But I'm just like, where does he find all these?
That's all I do. The ones that I find like funny, you get like, say you have like 30 of them. The ones I really find funny, I'll just kind of narrow that down. I'm all about quality, not quantity.
Yeah. Now here's the real question. Does Daisy find them as hilarious as I do? Because I know you tag your wife in a lot of those.
Yeah. She does them too. She's probably just as dirty as me, but we have fun with it. Go back and forth, and we have people messaging us, like you and your husband, keep that up, all that kind of stuff. And then she obviously gets creepier ones, than me. Like, hey, I'll pay you $1,500 to see your feet, kind of deal. But
well, I guess it takes all kinds to make the world go round, right?
Right.
So, Ryan, before we get to anything else, you've got a big fight coming up. Corey Anderson, next round of the Grand Prix. Of course, you've known this fight was going to happen since, months ago, since both of you picked up wins. But how is everything going? I know you and Corey know each other because you have trained together in the past. Yeah,
we trained quite a while ago. Kind of trained twice. I brought him in for Phil Davis when I fought Phil once in UFC, once in Bellator, and so the second time I was in Bellator, he was in UFC, so didn't think much of it at all, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago, and then I figured we'd run into each other in UFC. But then, when I left and I figured that was the end of it. And then when he came over, I knew we were going to potentially fight because, he's one of the top guys. I'm the top guy. So, here we are.
Have you, not that you need to see what he's done just in his last couple of Bellator fights, but have you been impressed by what you've seen out of him in his last couple of wins?
Yeah, in Bellator, he kind of came in, he fought, not knocking on him, but, he fought a guy that was a striker that, hasn't done that well, and then he fought kind of a relatively no-name dude, tough guy, but, I haven't seen him kind of go up against, like the Phil Davises of the division and that kind of stuff, but I've been impressed with him. I've always been impressed with him. He's got a great work ethic. He trains hard. He puts in the work and, he brings it during fight time. And, overall he's a good guy.
The thing about Corey, and this is not a knock on him, he loves to use his wrestling, and he does it very well. We have seen him knock people out. He got Johnny Walker. I think he shocked everyone with that, the way he fought that fight and got that knockout, but I think he's best known for his wrestling. And I know I've said some form of this to you many times in the past, Ryan, but I feel like when it comes to MMA wrestling, you're one of the best in business. Everyone wanted to bring up that narrative of you and Phil Davis, and I said, well, I love Phil. Phil's a great fighter, but I think you're a better MMA wrestler than him, and we've seen that play out in a couple different fights with you two. Do you feel like there's a little bit of that same narrative in this one? Corey's a great wrestler, great grappler. You're better.
Yeah, I definitely do, and it's style of wrestling too. He's not really an explosive wrestler. He's a kind of a grinding, he shoots kind of from far away, his arms are outstretched, he's not running through you. He's running you to the cage. He's not like a Phil Davis where if Phil wants to get a takedown and gets you, he explodes and gets his long arms on you and he's putting you down right away, and looking back at my career, I've done extremely well when I fought fellow wrestlers, and those are the fights I think I have most of my knockouts, with is those wrestlers, So I do believe I have a distinct advantage in that department. He's good. He's a grinder. He goes in. He's well conditioned. But I'm one of the, if not the best conditioned guy, in that division also. So. I just feel wherever it goes, I kind of have that advantage.
Yeah, and we talk about the power on the feet. I mean, of course, we know you have huge knockout power on. You've shown that throughout your entire career, but we've also seen that kind of break guys when a guy can't get a takedown, when he can't try to out wrestle you, those kind of things. It does kind of break their spirit a little bit. Do you think that is a key component with Corey? If he can't get you down, if he's reaching for those takedowns and he doesn't get him, you can kind of see a guy's spirit break a little bit in there, can't you?
100%. I don't think that'll be the case with him because, he's had those fights where, he brings a volume. They might not be, knockout shots every time, but he has a lot of volume. I don't think he'll break. He has a pretty tough mindset, and you got to put him away. But I definitely feel that in a lot of my fights, where, okay, I saw that, I felt that, that point when they're tired or they're like, man, I don't want to be in here anymore. That's kind of, I have kind of a sense about that, in every fight, I kind of feel when that's the time, whether that's, I'm on top of them, grinding them out and can put them away with ground and pound or whatnot, or on the feet. I definitely feel that in a lot of those fights when they're like, man, is this going to continue for, 4 more rounds, man? I don't know if I can do it. So I feel that moment for sure.
And I know training isn't fighting, but you felt Corey. You know what it's like to train with him. You know his strengths and things like that. And, of course, you're expecting him to come in, better prepared, try to throw in a few, tricks of the trade that he's learned since you guys trained together. But the reality is it can't hurt that you've actually felt him in there. You know what his strengths are. You know how he feels in there, his length, things like that. I mean, those are little things that can play a factor in a fight, right?
Yeah, 100%. I don't take too much from training, really, but I fight and train with those guys, that type of style every single day. We have a bunch of wrestlers. I have guys that are wrestlers with better striking and, all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing that since the beginning of my career, with all the All-Americans from ASU and all that coming in. And so it's not like it was my last fight with Machida where, all right, I haven't seen that a lot. I don't have those kind of partners. I have his style of partners I've had for, 15 plus years, so it's going to be nothing new at all.
Yeah. Before this Grand Prix started, we did an interview, and I said in an ideal world, it could be a bit of the, the Ryan Bader revenge tour, depending on how this plays out, because you had a couple of guys on the bracket that, potentially, had losses to, and you could potentially get those back. Now, unfortunately, we know Anthony Johnson's out, and we got Vadim Nemkov fighting Julius Anglicus. Absolutely nothing whatsoever against Julius. He's undefeated in Bellator, good fighter, but we can't deny that he's going to be a massive underdog against Vadim Nemkov. Is there any, again, it doesn't matter to you because you were going to fight the winner either way, but is there any disappointment that you don't get to see that Anthony Johnson Nemkov fight?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to see that, for my personal reasons, as far as, it didn't matter who won. I make it to the finals on that side if they were fighting. It's perfect because I get redemption regardless, and so I wanted to see how that fight played out also, so we'll see. You never know. Like when something happens like this, with Julius coming in, it's prime time for upsets too, but I do hope Nemkov makes it to the finals and I can go out there and kind of relive the heavyweight Grand Prix, go out there, beat him, beat the champion and get my light heavyweight belt back. It'd be that much sweeter. If I would have had a automatic rematch, which we were kind of like about to ask for and talk about a little bit, it wouldn't be as sweet as what I'm doing right now, going through a tournament. We meet in the finals and I beat him that way.
I know, and you're not an excuse guy, so I know that about you, but I know that you did have to go through a real body transformation after fighting at heavyweight for so long and then going back down to light heavyweight and then having that fight with Nemkov. Do you feel like you are back to being a true light heavyweight now, and do you feel like that is going to be a factor against Corey Anderson? And it could be a big factor in the Nemkov rematch as well. Again, I know you're not an excuse guy, but your body, I mean, you were fighting at heavyweight for quite a while.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not an excuse guy. And at the end of the day, I did get kicked in the head, and I signed up for that fight. So it is what it is. But here are some excuses, I tore my MCL almost completely like 12, 13 weeks before that fight. I'm like, all right, it's all good. I was sitting around high 230s, almost 240, and I couldn't grapple at all. I couldn't do any of that stuff until about 4 weeks prior. And I'm like, it's all good. I'm a heavyweight, strong enough. I'm fast enough. It's during COVID. I don't know when I'm going to fight again, so I'm going to take this fight. Figuring it was at heavyweight. And then 4 weeks prior, they're like, hey, we can get Nemkov into the country. It's going to be at light heavyweight. And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. And so I just didn't feel like myself in there at all. You usually see me aggressive and all that. And I was kind of lackadaisical. I felt lackadaisical. My cardio felt good, but I was just kind of like, I wasn't in that fight. And afterwards, the coach was kind of saying the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I took that fight. Should I have pulled out? Probably, but there was so much variables and so much unknowns out there as far as, all right, what happens if everything shuts down and we can't fight at all? I need to take this fight. So it was one of those things where, yeah, I want to get it back because I want to prove myself, prove the fans, everything that wasn't me in there and get another shot basically. But, I took that fight and got a head kick.
Yeah. Well, in a weird way, it kind of plays out this way. I mean, you get the toughest opponent you could get on this side of the bracket. I mean, Corey Anderson is as legit as they get, and he was a top 5 light heavyweight in the UFC before leaving. So you get a win over him and then potentially fight Nemkov in the finals to get that a bit of revenge. It's almost like the perfect story, right?
Oh, 100%. And it was fun to get in there with Machida, and beat him, get redemption there. And then with Corey, that's a great matchup. I think with Corey and I, Phil Davis and I, we have terrible fights together. It's just, it is what it is, styles and everything, but I think the way Corey is and matches up with my style, I think it's going to be a great fight. One of those fights that I look forward to, the fans are going to like and everything here in my, home state and everything. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that he's over here on our side, I like those fights with the named fighters. If the other guy would have won, good luck pronouncing his name, but it wouldn't be as big, It's like, okay, you're supposed to beat that guy, even though he's tough. But so I'm looking forward to this matchup.
I don't want to disrespect Julius by making it sound like he's just a speed bump in the way, but I just don't see him beating Nemkov. It's not a knock on him. I do believe Nemkov is a beast. I mean, there's no shame in that. Like I said, when you lost to Nemkov, I didn't think it was and I told you this, off the air and on the air, I didn't think it would look like you. It didn't look like the Ryan Bader we all know in that cage that night. But that being said, Nemkov is an animal and good for him. I just don't see Julius, beating him. I just think I think it's one of those matchups where it's like, yeah, it could be an upset, but I don't see it happening. Do you agree? Yeah,
I agree. Definitely. Nemkov he has very good footwork. He's good everywhere. Julius is taking this fight on, I think, 4 weeks notice, and so it's one of those things where, at the end of the spectrum, he has nothing to lose though, going out there, and like I said, this is kind of a prime setup too for an upset. You never know. These big fights like that, sometimes you're like, that happens, but regardless, I think Nemkov is going to go out there and definitely win.
Yeah. I know you kind of joke about it that you and Phil Davis never have great fights, but Phil Davis is one of those guys where it's like he's never the most exciting guy, but he always finds a way to get it done. And you look at his fights with Nemkov, but then you look at what he just did to Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero had all this hype behind him. Everyone saying, oh, my God, Yoel's this beast. And that split decision was a joke, by the way. That was not a split decision. But there's another example. Like Phil Davis is one of those guys. No one beats him easily. Like no one goes out there and dominates Phil Davis.
Not at all. I like Phil Davis a lot. And he goes out there and he finds a way to win. A lot of his fights might not be the most exciting or whatnot, but he's a beast, man. And I really liked his fight with Yoel. I talked to him a little bit. I'm like, man, you look freaking amazing out there, and I thought that fight I liked that fight a lot, and he did everything perfect in that fight, so he's a beast, and he's always one of those guys that are right there, his fights with Nemkov, both of them were pretty close, a few different things, changes, taking him down in the first or second round could have won him that fight.
Yeah. It's funny when this Grand Prix kicked off, and here's where we're going to have to start a little bit of a debate here, because when the Grand Prix kicked off, I asked you this question. I said, do you believe the winner of this tournament will 100% be the best light heavyweight in the sport? And when you looked at the field, it was hard to argue against that. When you looked at, Anthony Johnson, and you looked at Nemkov, you looked at you, Corey, you had the records for you and Anthony and Corey in the UFC, so you could compare that. Corey had a win over Jan Blachowicz. Of course, I know he also lost to Jan, so I don't want to take that away from him, but they had a split series. Anthony's history in the UFC, his only losses coming to Daniel Cormier. Of course, you had a long history in the UFC, and then what you'd also done in Bellator. Now, Anthony and Yoel kind of dropping out, I'll admit it did kind of bum me out that didn't happen, and I think you and Corey, is still a very big fight. Nemkov's still out there. Do you still believe the winner of this tournament is the best light heavyweight in the sport, or has Jan Blachowicz done enough to where you could see the argument now?
Man, I don't love to sit here and be like, oh, we have the best, or, whoever wins is the best. You never know. But at the end of the day, if you don't think that myself, Corey, or Nemkov can go in there and beat Jan, you're crazy. Those fights are toss-ups. Any one of us can go and beat Jan. And potentially, Glover's fighting Jan too. He could be the champion, so yeah, I don't love to get into that debate because you never know. And it's kind of, it's fruitless because we're not going to do a cross promotion, but like I said, any one of us three right now can go in there and potentially beat them.
Yeah, there is real. I mean, let's be honest, Ryan. There is UFC bias. There's no doubt about that. We
know
100%. That. I mean, I think, and I've said this, and I think Alexander Volkanovski's an animal. What he just did with Brian Ortega was a fantastic fight. I think he's amazing. I think AJ McKee's the best featherweight in the sport. That's not a knock on Alexander Volkanovski. It's just I think AJ McKee is the best featherweight in the sport. And I think right now, if you're asking me to rank it, I would put Jan Blachowicz number one just because of what he's done his last couple of fights. But, in a few months when this tournament's over, let's say you go out and beat Corey Anderson and you beat Nemkov, you get your revenge in that match, the debate's a lot harder at that point because then you have two more marquee wins, you know what I mean? Like, I think at that point it is a legitimate debate because as great as Jan has looked, and he's looked amazing, I love Jan Blachowicz, nicest guy in the world and on an incredible streak, if you were able to go out and beat Machida, Anderson and Nemkov back-to-back-to-back, that's a pretty damn impressive streak.
Yeah, for sure. And styles make fights too. And I definitely think I can go in there. I don't think I would go in there and obviously strike with him, but take him down, beat him up on the ground and all that kind of stuff, Yeah, and I agree with you too. He should be up there number one because, let's face it, UFC has a deeper pool, as a deeper division. He beat Izzy too, and so, yeah, I mean, that's no problem at all, but at the end of the day, you go out there and the winner of this tournament, I definitely believe they go in there and beat that UFC current champion, whoever it is, It's one of those fights where, I mean, we're all at the top. And like you said, if you're not in the UFC, a lot of fans are like, oh, you're shit, but that's not the case. And like you were saying with AJ McKee, all those kind of guys, so it's one of those things that I don't put too much stock in. I just go out there, do my job, collect my paycheck, and be the best that I can be.
Yeah. Let me ask, kind of talk about picks and predictions here with the fight coming up between Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. I know we've talked about the Glover fight with you many times. That was, in my opinion, a big turning point in your career, because that was a fight where you went out there and were, trading leather with a guy like Glover Teixeira, and you kind of got away from your wrestling. And I know you said to me many times that kind of was a wake-up call that, like, you can win those fights, but it's a toss-up, because you're just, when you're trading bombs with another heavy hitter, anything can happen. And that's what happened. And by wrestling, you've kind of taken that, you've kind of, increased your chances of winning, I guess I should say, every time. You've been in there with Glover. You know what that guy can do. He's been on an incredible run. Do you give him a chance to beat Jan?
100%, and I think it's Glover's just really durable. He obviously hits hard and all that kind of stuff, but he has amazing grappling. He has good takedowns, so I can see if Glover goes in there, I think he's going to have to withstand the storm a little bit, but if he gets him down on the ground, I think it's going to be a long night for Jan. Glover's tough all the way around. He's one of the more well-rounded fighters, so that's a tough one. I would probably take Glover in that fight. I think he goes out there and beats him, and then it kind of sets up his whole career. He's what is he, 41 years old? He's still tip top shape. He's looked great, and he's been on this run. And for him to close it out with a UFC championship, and defend it or whatever he wants to do, it's kind of like the perfect story for him.
It's kind of hard in a way not to root for Glover, considering, like, I know you know him. I know there was no bad blood whatsoever when you fought him, but he's like one of the nicest guys in the world. He's like a true martial artist, like, just embodies martial arts. I don't think he's ever said a bad word about anybody. I can't remember.
No,
he's just one of those guys. Like, it's hard not to root for him, but at the same time, you can't deny what Jan has done. I think the key for me in this fight, personally, I think is Jan, if Jan can put the damage on him, he can't overexert himself, though, because Glover is so tough. I mean, Anthony Smith had Glover hurt early, and then, he didn't finish him, and then Glover comes back and just demolishes him later in the fight. I think if Jan hurts him early, he can't go, balls to the wall, so to speak, because if Glover survives, what are you going to have left in rounds 3 and 4? And Glover's a guy who will be there in rounds 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, that durability. Start of the fight could look like he's getting beat up real bad, just like the Anthony fight, and then all of a sudden tides turn and he's in there going the same pace that he was, and like I was saying too, I think his grappling's underrated. He's real heavy on top, he's strong, and he knows how to get to the certain positions where he can unload or go for a submission too, and so I agree with you 100% there. Jan's got to be careful, because Glover is going to be durable. He's going to fight the 5th round like he was fighting the 1st, and that's why I kind of lean more towards Glover winning that fight.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I am picking Jan to win. I'm very high on Jan right now. I think he's looked really good, and I think there is a certain confidence that he's kind of built inside of himself being champion. I think that win over Izzy was big. Everyone was picking Izzy to be the double champ, and here's Izzy's coronation and all these kind of things. And for him to go out there and get that win, I thought that was huge for him just personally. And I still think he is capable of beating Glover. But I agree 100%. If there's a 3rd round, a 4th round in this fight, 5th round in this fight, that's where I start leaning towards Glover. Because I think the longer you let that guy stick around, the more dangerous he gets.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, I agree with you too. Jan, that confidence is big, going in there and knowing that you're the best in the world, not just thinking and maybe I am, I feel like he has a confidence now. Like you said, he went in there, beat Izzy, and he feels like, all right, I'm the top dog. Nobody can beat me. And when you walk in with that confidence and everything, it's a lot, it carries over for sure in that fight.
Absolutely. Now, Ryan, you fought a lot of guys in your career, and you've done a lot of things. And outside of the cage, you've always been, a pretty even kill guy. You've done a lot of work with the military. You've done a lot of work for charity, things like that. You've always been a guy to kind of keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble. And it's not to say that makes you a better person than anybody else, but you've always been able to kind of live your life and kind of be the guy, who's not afraid to, got to be a role model, I guess the best way to say it. Unfortunately, one of your former opponents has been in the headlines recently, and that's John Jones, former UFC light heavyweight champion. We've seen, of course, he was arrested recently and charged with a domestic violence charge, as well as injuring or disabling a vehicle. The police report came out. I did the report last week. His fiance had blood on her nose and mouth, or her mouth and nose and her face. And then the police say he rammed his head into the police cruiser when he got agitated when he was being arrested. I'm not going to condemn the guy because we don't know the full story. Let him have his day in court. But this is, once again, a really, really bad look for Jon Jones. And then I don't know how much you pay attention to social media, Ryan, but like he had one post where he said, I'm going to turn this nightmare into the best thing in my life. He's doing like weightlifting, and then he puts out a really weird video where he's like kissing his fiance, and it was like this really uncomfortable, like, I don't know, like I understand the point of what he's trying to do maybe, although I don't think whoever's his publicist should be fired because it gets a really terrible look in that situation. I'm not here to put him on trial in a legal setting, but we can't deny this has happened again and again and again with Jon Jones, and this to me is the worst of it because to me personally, you can't come back from domestic violence, and there's no excuse for that in any way, shape, or form, especially when you are a trained professional fighter. You do not put your hands on a woman. Ryan, I want to get your opinion on this because you were around. You were there in those days in the UFC when he first started kind of getting into trouble, DUIs, things like that. You were there. You were present for it. You were part of the division he was in. You fought him, of course, but you also know what that was like. But now here we are. I think this is, I want to say, his fifth arrest in the last, 10 years or whatever. I don't know. What do you make of this situation with Jon Jones?
Man, I mean, people make mistakes, right? But if, like I said, we don't know all the facts, or like you said, actually, don't know all the facts or whatever, but if he did put hands on, a woman, his fiance, that's the biggest scumbag move you can do. And he should be gone if he did that, plain and simple, but I mean, people make mistakes, right? But when you keep making them over and over and over again, it's not a mistake anymore. It's a habit, and it's the people around you too. He's got to have somebody be like, hey, I know you're in Vegas and you just were at the Hall of Fame deal, got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Let's just go in the hotel suite and party or whatever. We don't need to be out. We don't need to be doing this stuff, or just like, keep it contained a little while, and I think it's the people around him, that need to step up too. Obviously mistakes are going to be made. When you keep making them, something's got to change. When you go to Vegas, maybe don't go out. Go out around your friends or something at home or whatever it is. And he's got a lot of eyeballs on him, and so you just have to be more careful because every single person is going to wait for you to make a mistake now. And so I think. Moral of the story, if he did put his hands on a woman, he should be done, Don't know all the facts, but it keeps happening over and over again with him getting in trouble. He's got to tighten it up.
Yeah, well, he came out with the statement where he said something about, I can't be around alcohol, I can't do alcohol, and I understand that. Listen, not everyone, I get that. I'm sympathetic to addiction. I've been around addiction my whole life, but I drink. I mean, I've been out partying. I'm not going to let a secret go. There may have been a UFC event in Louisville a few years ago where I think I may have even had a couple beers with the current Bellator heavyweight champion. But none of that resulted in either one of us, doing really stupid, things. Neither one of us drove drunk. Neither one of us hit anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I understand. I completely am sympathetic to the addiction part of it. I get it. But just being addicted still doesn't excuse you for the things you do, in that situation. And for Jon, it's happened so many times. Like, it's like, okay, your first DUI, I get it, man. Okay, you made a mistake, 24 years old, you're on top of the world, you became champion, everyone's giving you all this accolade. I get it. I understand. I'm not saying excuses it, but I understand it. But then when it just keeps escalating, like the hit and run from 2015, you think that would be the breaking point, right? He got his title stripped. Then he gets arrested again last year. Now this, and again, I'm not condemning him, but I'm saying if you put your hands on a woman, that's it. At some point, like the whole it's a mistake or second chances, like there's got to be a breaking point, right? Like we can't just keep saying he made a mistake. Like you don't put your hands on a woman and say it's a mistake.
No, I mean, if that is true, putting hands on a woman, all that, like I said, that should be it, right? I mean, I've had friends too, being around crazy ass wrestlers my whole life and all that, especially when you're younger, so I've had friends, they start drinking, they'll end up 300 miles away in Tijuana or something like that, but you get to a certain point where, all right, that's enough. Or you get to a certain age where like, okay, alcohol is a problem, I'm not going to drink. Or if I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink, with my wife or with my, a couple friends at the house. I'm not going to go anywhere, Then you compound that where, you're a famous athlete. You're John Jones, one of the best fighters in the world. Everybody's looking at you and noting everything that you do. You got to be super careful. So, yeah, I mean, you would think there would be a breaking point. And like you said, he has trouble with alcohol. Don't drink alcohol, especially when you're in Vegas and you have, an event, people know you're there, it's just one of those things you gotta tighten that up. And yeah, if you want to indulge, do it in a safe place where, you're not going to get in trouble, But yeah, it goes back into that, putting hands on a female, that's unexcusable.
Yeah. And it's also the weird thing about this now is that you wonder what can be done, because you look at the UFC and you say, well, they have some responsibility in this, because if John keeps screwing up and he never has to pay the consequences in the cage, and yes, they did strip his title the one time, his first fight back, he's fighting for the title again. It's not like they said you got to go to the bottom of the list and come back up again. And the other problem is, and you and I both know this, Ryan, if the UFC released him tomorrow, within 6 months, some other promotion's going to sign him. You know that. They're going to give the redemption story. They're going to give him the second chance. We all know that. So, like, in a weird way, I understand the UFC's in a tough position, because if they release him, then someone else is going to sign him. But at the same time, if you don't release him, if you don't punish him in some way, shape, or form, how do you go on from that? Like, how do you just continue to let this guy continue to mess up and do these things? I mean, he was just inducted to the frickin' UFC Hall of Fame, and 12 hours later he's in jail on domestic violence charges. Like, at what point do you say this is just diminishing returns? Like, and the weird thing is right now, and part of the reason I want to ask you this is because you're not in the UFC right now. You can speak much more freely. But, like, part of the problem right now is John's not the light heavyweight champion. He's not. Jan Blachowicz is. He's not the heavyweight champion. Francis Ngannou is. The divisions have both kind of moved beyond him. Now, I'm not saying John Jones is an amazing fighter. I've considered him the greatest mixed martial artist of all time for a few years. That being said, if they did release him right now, and I'm not saying they should, I'm not telling them what they're doing. I'm just saying that if you don't do anything, it looks really, really bad. It is really, really bad. Releasing him right now, to me, isn't the worst thing in the world, because you're not losing a champion. You're not losing the number one guy. We already know that Ngannou's going to fight Cyril Gane. We already know that Jan's fighting Glover. To me, like, and the fact that they're not doing anything is just mind-boggling to me. It's just, I understand you're stuck, but right now they're not really stuck in a way. Like, John's not the face of the promotion right now. So it's like, are they really doing more harm than good by not punishing the guy and saying, you know what? You've got to be done with you for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, I think you even kind of see it, in Dana's press conferences and all that. They're not moving on from him, but they're kind of like, they have other players. Francis came in, has looked amazing. Jan's a champion, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, he's really not the face anymore, where it used to be like he was the biggest star and he did what he did and that was it, and we'll figure it out, but now there's other people stepping up, and there will continue to be other people that make themselves stars, and I do kind of see Dana kind of not distancing himself, but kind of like, you hear statements and all that kind of stuff. Like, we're moving on. We're doing this fight. John Jones can text me or call me when he's whatever, but, and I see both sides, do they want to let him go and get picked up by another promotion? Probably not. If he does something again and really injures somebody, hurts somebody, is there accountability on the UFC now for, not stepping up and doing anything? So they're in a weird position for sure. But I do think they're in a lot different position than, say, 5 years ago, where he was a man, he was a champion, and people want to see him go up there and fight and be a double champion at heavyweight and all that kind of stuff. So, they're definitely in a weird position. The UFC is. Yeah.
Well, like I said, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. In your own career, though, Ryan, you got this big fight coming up, and have they said? I don't think I've heard them say this fight's in October. Have they said when they want to do the finals?
No, they're pretty loosey goosey with that. The heavyweight Grand Prix was predetermined. they locked down the dates and we stuck to those dates. And I like that a lot. On this one, they said, all right, the semifinals would be in July. Obviously it's now in October. And so it's kind of, I know they've been working through the whole pandemic thing and all that kind of stuff, but I kind of gotten used to it, fight this fight, and we could be fighting in January, it could be fighting in May, so I haven't really heard too much.
Do you want to be double champ again? Because, and the reason I ask that is you were doing it and you were the double champ, but we also saw, now I know the Nemkov fight wasn't under great circumstances. You just talked about it. You thought you were fighting at heavyweight 4 weeks out there, like, oh, cut to 205. That's a whole other animal. But now that you've gone through it, do you want to be double champ again? Or do you think if you won the light heavyweight title, you would make a decision and say, I'm only going to be in one division or the other?
I want to do whatever is in front of me. It's not. I already had the double champ status. It's not necessarily like I want to hold both belts at the same time. That's not a huge deal for me. I'm always kind of looking in the short term, like, all right, it's Corey Anderson. Then it's whoever wins that fight. And I want to win those fights and I want to get that light heavyweight belt. As long as Bellator has been cool with, as they have been, being double champ and being able to keep belts. And because I've done everything they've asked, I've fought every weight class, after beat Fedor. Am I going back to light heavyweight? No. Can you do a heavyweight? Sure. Boom. Did that, and then, you want to come down to this light heavyweight tournament, try for, the light heavyweight title. I said, sure. You can keep your heavyweight belt. We might do an interim belt, whatever. Like, that's fine with me, so as long as they're still cool with that, as far as allowing me to keep both belts and jump from one division to the other, I'm fine, but as soon as they start tightening that up and all that kind of stuff, I might decide, which weight class to fight in.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this many times. I'll close out on this. Listen, your career, you're obviously one of the best light heavyweights in the world, one of the best heavyweights in the world. So you're not going anywhere anytime soon. But you've had a great relationship with Bellator, and I know that's been compounded by multiple contracts. At this point, the way you feel about everything, and I know never say never. Do you think Bellator will be the last promotion you fight for?
Yeah, I think so. I love it over here. I get paid very, very, very well. Contract's great. It wouldn't make sense to go anywhere else. When I had a contract up after Fedor, and I had some interest, from every organization, including UFC, and Bellator made me an offer where I couldn't leave at all. So I'm happy where I'm at. The one thing maybe I would like to do, I always wanted potentially maybe jump in the Showtime boxing ring or something like that, do some cool stuff like that, different stuff. But we'll see. But I believe that Bellator will be my last promotion.
So you want to knock out Jake Paul is what you're telling me right now? Is that what you're telling me?
I'll fight him. Yeah, I'll fight any of those guys. I just think it would be fun. I don't want to go in there and fight a top-ranked boxer, but I would like to go in there. And I've always, since the beginning of my career, I always wanted to do a boxing match. I never got to do, some of my other training partners kind of did the different boxing matches and stuff. And I always wanted to try that, but I never had the opportunity. So that might be something down the road. And obviously Showtime and we're with Showtime now. And so could be some different, I'm all about doing different cool stuff, like going up to heavyweight and fighting in the Grand Prix, doing this light heavyweight Grand Prix, ability to get 2 titles, all that kind of stuff. I've done it all in mixed martial arts. And so when any of these new opportunities kind of pop up, I'm all for it. It gets me motivated.
Yeah, I know I actually talked to Jake about this, I want to say before his fight with Woodley, and he said, I'd love to do cross promotion, bring over some MMA guys, have them fight on my card, that kind of stuff. And I know Steven Espinoza has said, now that Bellator is with Showtime, he would like the chance to bring, crossover. So the opportunity is there. You actually work for a promotion that I think would allow you to do that, unlike the UFC. And you actually have a real legit boxing promoter as part of your company now.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going, when Showtime kind of picked us up, and so it just have to be one of those things where it had to make sense, I'm not going to lose money to go box, I'd rather just fight another MMA fight, so it would have to be the right matchup and all that kind of stuff, right payday.
Yeah, I'll headline it tomorrow, Ryan. Ryan Bader calls out Deontay Wilder for a boxing match. I'll just go ahead and put that out there.
There we go. Hell, pay me enough. I'll get in there with him.
Yeah, if they pay me enough, I'll get in there. Trust me. I don't want to fight, but if they pay me enough, I'll get in there and get knocked out in 6 seconds. I got 6 seconds to spare for like $6 million.
Exactly.
Ryan, it is always a pleasure, my friend. I really appreciate you doing this. Again, best of luck with your training camp. I know things are pretty much kind of wrapped up at this point.
Yeah.
I think I saw the other day you said your last big sparring session. So, safe travels out to the fight. Best of luck. And thank you as always for doing this, man. I really do appreciate it.
It was fun, buddy. Anytime, of course.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you, buddy.
Bye-bye. Ryan Bader, there you go. He's fighting coming up. Corey Anderson, Bellator, great fight. I am a little disappointed we're not going to see the Anthony Johnson-Nimkov fight, but I think it's going to be interesting. I think we will end up seeing Ryan Bader against Nimkov in a rematch in the finals. No offense. I love Corey Anderson. I do think Ryan Bader will win that fight, but we'll see what happens. Big thank you to Ryan Bader for coming on. I appreciate it. Make sure you're checking us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can also find us over, of course, on MMAfighting.com. Want to say a big thank you once again to Ryan Bader, and thank you to each and every one of you that tunes in to The Fighter versus the Writer each and every week. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.